Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Chair. Now, like Senator O'Mahony, I'm not a member, but of course, coming from the county of Roscommon and the Roscommon-Galway constituency, I always have a huge interest in your work. And first of all, I want to, compliment you on the work you've done since you were set up. I think there's no doubt that because of your presence, it was significant in terms of at least showing we had some survival in the region. My point being, if you weren't there, we probably would be in a worse position. Any of the questions I ask, they may not be in your remit, and that's fine, that's okay. I'll understand that. Just first of all, your budget for 2018 and the number of staff you have employed now, and is that budget open to all areas of development? For example, we know it's open to industry, but tourism, rural renewal, is it open-ended? Just a few brief comments before I put 3 or 4 questions. The big concern I have is from a Roscommon perspective. We're up to, the latest figures I have show close to 1,000 people a day travel to work in Dublin. It's between 900 and 1,000, I understand. And somebody said to me recently, isn't it lucky we have them? And it is great that we have employment within the island. I accept that. But I want to just reflect for a moment on families and the amount of people I know who arise at 4 a.m., 4:30 in the morning, rush to get a train or get into the car to avoid the traffic, work in Dublin all day, return home 9 o'clock, maybe later at night. It is no life for a family. And you look at the situation in Dublin and the East Coast, you also look at Galway City, which is bursting at the seams. And you go 40 minutes out the motorway to Ballinasloe, has lost almost 3,000 jobs in the last 10, 11 years. And I constantly ask the question of why we can't look at some relocation. The same goes for other towns like Montbellew, Ballygar, whatever. That's number one. Number two, in many parts of my region, broadband is non-existent. And the people have been told, again, I'm only, of course, obviously there is an issue with rolling out the national broadband plan, which hasn't happened, and that's a government issue, and I'm not laying the blame at your door. But there has been so many announcements about broadband, and it hasn't happened. And here is the reality of some situations. It's a minority of situations. A number of small businesses are moving out of the county. For example, in the east of Roscommon, there are businesses locating in Longford Town, out of the Strokes towns, the Ruskis or wherever. They may be rurally based, I accept that. It's not all bad news in relation to broadband, but we are losing some small businesses specifically because we cannot deliver the broadband. Now, we were told that broadband was going to be as important as rural electrification. If it was, why isn't it happening? That's number two. Again, in the 2040 plan, we've been told that the development of the national primary route, the N4, and the N5 are going to take place. But can we fast-track those? Because as you would know yourself from Westport right through Roscommon to Dublin, the big issues with the roads through County Roscommon. And I've met many of the industries in Mayo who are constantly complaining about the state of that road. So, I mean, how can we push those further and get that work up and done as quickly as possible? The same happens in Carrick and Shannon. We have this difficulties with no plan in relation to a bypass, a ring road of the town. And it's a dreadful situation there for traffic coming from the northwest. So the development of that N4 is very important. And also, when I'm speaking about that, one of the things I've noticed in relation to bypasses, they definitely have affected business in our towns. If you're a filling station, if you're a paper shop, that type of shop, the bypass has affected you. Maybe not if you're the hardware, the chemist, it doesn't affect you. But it definitely has had an effect on hotels, effect on filling stations or whatever. So is there any fund available, or can there be a fund made available? I brought this up before, to rejuvenate those towns. Because remember, every time there's a bypass done, there could be 60, 80, 100,000 euros spent on some little piece of artwork to commemorate the birth of a new bypass. So why can we not have a fund that would in some way rejuvenate part of that town? So they are just some of the questions. I don't want to take up any more time because Deputy O'P was there. They are just some of the issues, some of the questions I would like you to answer, and if they're not relevant to your area, I accept. That's fair enough.
Thanks very much, Deputy. You might address those questions, please.
Thank you, Deputy. I'll just start from your first question. Our 2018 budget and staff, so we currently have 14 full-time equivalents in the building, as they say, and our 2018 budget, total budget from the Exchequer, is 1.565 million. So that's for everything, pay, non-pay.
Which is small. That is small. But anyhow.
Yeah.
We're welcome that you say that.
Yeah, it is. We have definitely diversified our funding in order to do what we do. That's why Europe and other things. Anyway, I'll move on. I really fully. I moved back to the West for quality of life, and if I may just digress for one quick second, because your point on families. I forgot to mention, really, when we were talking with economic-based model population, it's really important. We spoke recently with Alan Ahern, who you probably know from NUIG, Professor of Economics there now. There is a real new thing coming out now, which is kind of, how did he put it, is annoying to economists who are scientists, and it's got to do with this whole quality of life thing. It's more and more seen as a key determinant for certain growth, and they're talking about why clusters suddenly arrive in the middle of nowhere, why high-value people move to places. That's really important, because when you're talking about families and the movement, part of our ethos is to try and combat or offer alternatives to this. Absolutely. We do this through the regional promotion, but also, as I mentioned in the submission, the written submission, we're working with IDA, the institutes, to do a talent tool. We've done this before, which captures people not only who are in the region of talent, but also who are outside the region but want to come back. And this has predominantly been used to attract inward investment and grow the case for Indigenous business. So I'm not saying it's a solution and a panacea, but I'm saying it helps. We did this once before, and one of the key things I always told people was it was apparently the key determinant in Randox moving to Donegal as opposed to continuing expansion in Northern Ireland. They basically didn't know if there was enough PhD type people. We showed them the data that said it was. They went, okay, that takes that off the table. We're hoping to do that in an even better way going forward, so we strengthen the case for people. And it also shows you the reason why thousands of people, because we've done the pre-research, want to be on the talent tool. It's not just they want any old job, they want a job in the region they came from or the region they wish to live in now, which is the West in terms of its quality. We've talked about broadband, Deputy. I couldn't agree more. The better the quality, the faster the rollout. That's just a fact that we're getting from the businesses all the time. And you've mentioned it's a key determinant of people moving out. I've already said it's a key determinant for people to maintain, to stay there. And we've got hundreds of creative businesses only in that sector saying this. The NPF, it would be great if we could do that overnight. I join you in asking, can we fast track it? Genuinely, it's not within our remit there at all, and I'm not. That's not slopey shoulders.
No,
we believe that would realise huge gains for the region. The question of the bypass is really interesting. I'm going to have to consider that a little bit more, if you don't mind, because we have worked with communities like Letterfrack, about small communities, about, you want to do an enterprise centre, for what purpose, who's going to be there, what will you do it, and we're working with them now in phase 2 and phase 3 of that, and there's some ideas coming out of that. That wasn't due to a bypass, though. That was just a small community. So, with respect, if I could sort of look at that whole bypass thing, maybe I could come back to you on that, because it's just something that's new to me in terms of an idea.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Just clarifications or responding to a member, you might also respond to the committee. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Deputy Eamon O'Keefe.